All righty, good morning and welcome. We will go ahead and give people just a couple minutes to join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We have lots of information to cover today. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Give everybody just one more minute to join us. All righty. I think we're good to go ahead and get started. Just as a quick reminder, please put all questions for the panelists in the Q&A, and any technical assistance questions that you need assistance with, go ahead and put those for me in the chat. And I will go ahead and hand it over to Sanita to get us started.
Thanks so much, Bree. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are here again today on the 88th session. Every time I say these numbers, I'm wowed by how many of these sessions that we have completed so far. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go over the PPP, the COVID idle, and more today. A little bit of housekeeping before we move on. Bree went over a couple of things. I do want to let you know that this recording will be available on ASKSBDC.com. We get asked that a lot. It's going to be there and it'll be available a little bit later, if not later today than tomorrow. The slide deck will be available once you complete the survey. And as Bree had stated, if you can please put your questions in the Q&A. And if you have any tech issues, please put that in the chat. For your questions, can you please put if it is regarding PPP or idle or something else, so that way we know exactly how to answer that question if there is an answer to that question. Things are changing all the time, still today, still changing all the time. The information that we have today is relevant as of last night or yesterday afternoon. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Next, please. Today, we are presenting this to you with the Northern California SBDC, the Finance Center. We are supported by the SBA and also the state of California for no-cost advising, training, and workshops. This is how we're able to provide you with no-cost trainings, is by SBA in the state of California. The Finance Center is represented here today by Steve Roth, the lending specialist, Bree Palmer, program assistant, myself, Sanita Maharaj, and we also have 15 other lending specialists that work on our team. Next, please. The SBDC footprint. We are in Northern California, so we help 36 counties in Northern California, 18 full service centers, 6 satellite centers, 35 outreach locations, 2 tech programs. Actually, we have more affiliates. Sorry, didn't change this. I believe we have about 11 affiliates now and a workforce of over 500 individuals. Next, please. If you'd like to contact us at the Finance Center, please, you can get started here at financesimplified.com/start to sign up as a client if you're not a client already. And if you want to find your local center, you can find it at norcalsbdc.org. I want to go through the agenda really quickly. What's new? The California Relief Grant, the PPP, EIDL, SBA debt relief, the SVOG, the RRF, the ERC, SBA team updates, upcoming webinars, and the Q&A. And as if you can see, we do not have case here, but I'll give you some information in regards to them today. Next, please. Here's the case force information. Here's the resource guide. Unfortunately, they were not able to get us an attorney today, so I'm very sorry if you were here specifically for them. This is the resource guide right here. Bree will also put it in the chat. Thank you so much, Bree. She knew I was going to ask for that. And then also, I believe, maybe not now, but maybe later, she can give you some other links for Start Now, I believe, which Heidi had, Kim had put on there, Heidi Kim. So we'll give you some of that information as well, just in case you need it. Now I'm going to turn this over to Steve Roth, and he's going to take it from here, and I'll pick it back up a little bit later. So thank you again for joining us.
All right, thanks very much, Sanita. Good morning, everyone. So what's new? The big new news is that the PPP program, the Payroll Protection Program, has closed at banks. The program ran out of funds, as we expressed over the last few weeks. the funds would probably be expended before the May 31st end of the program. And so banks are out. However, PPP is still open at some what are called CDFIs. CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institutions. CDFIs are credit unions, local associations, smaller banks, banks that deal with smaller clients on a local basis. And that's because when the law was created, Congress carved out some of the funds for PPP specifically for the CDFIs. And so those banks being smaller with smaller clients, they still have some funds left over. The Shuttered Venue Operating Grant, the application portal is open and it seems to do well now. They had some problems in the beginning, but they've gone away. And the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the portal opened on May the 3rd. They've had over 200,000 applications processed or accepted in the first 2 days. And as of Wednesday, they had already funded $2 billion worth of grants for 16,000 restaurants. And so Sunita will get to that later on, but so far it's been moving quite well. Next one, Bree. The California Relief Grant is closed. Round 6 ended a couple of days ago, and all email notifications are going to go out by the end of this week. So for those of you who have been on the wait list and have rolled from round 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and now to 6, you should hear something by this Friday or next Monday and let you know whether you received a grant or you haven't. But the program is now officially ended. Next one. If you do have any questions, all communications go through and from Lendistry. And we've included Lendistry's toll-free number as well as their email address. Lendistry makes the grant decisions and Lendistry sends out all the notices. So hopefully, you'll be able to contact them and hopefully you'll hear something positive before the end of the week. Next one. Thank you. So on to the Payroll Protection Program, second draw, PPP2. Next one. As I said, you can still apply for the second draw PPP loan at these CDFIs. No one actually uses the long name of Community Development Financial Institutions. So they're referred to as CDFIs. If you do a Google search for CDFIs. And they'll continue to take applications until May 31st or until funds have been expended. If your application is accepted, it can be processed, meaning funded, through June 30th, 2021. So if you have an application that was already accepted at a bank, it's fine. There's nothing for you to do. It will continue to be processed by the lender and by the SBA until the end of June. So when you do apply, make sure you have your SBA application number from your first draw. On the second one, it's required. The $2 million maximum loan amount, 300 maximum number of employees. The key gating factor is the 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters, 2019 to 2020. And you only need one quarter to be down by 25% or more to be eligible for the second draw PPP loan. Next one. Thanks. So remember, if you previously received PPP 1 loan, you're going to state that you will or you have or will use all the funds before you get the second loan. You have to have been in business by February 15th, 2020. The second draw application hot link is there. And again, PPP2 is available to a wide variety of nonprofits as well as for-profit organizations. The applications are very clear and very well done. So if you do have any questions, you can just go and look at an application online and you can see what's covered and what isn't. Next one. So the funding process remains the same with one exception, that the banks are out of it. So the borrower applies for the PPP2 at a participating CDFI. The lender reviews the application, gathers the required documents, make sure you're eligible, ask the underwriting questions as required by the process, and they're going to be the face of the program to you, the borrower, throughout the cycle, from borrowing to signing the documents to being funded, and then eventually to forgiveness. The lender approves the PPP2 application, sends it on to the SBA. The SBA does its own review, and if it's approved, they'll assign a loan guarantee number and send it back to the bank. If they deny the loan, they'll explain why, and they'll send it back to the lender. And then the lender will contact you with either why you've been approved or why you were denied. So the lender informs you of the results. The lender is the group that generates the legal forms, has you do an e-sign, and then funds the loan. And it files what's called a 1502 form back with the SBA to complete the transaction. Next one. So the process can take 2 to 4 weeks, which is problematic given that we don't have 2 to 4 weeks left. Today is the 12th, so there's 18 days left in the program, or until the CDFIs, not CB, I apologize, typo, until the CDFIs are run out of cash, run out of funding allocation. So the SBA is doing a good job of turning around the loans. I've had clients get their loan back from the SBA in as little as 1 day. And so if there are delays, they're most likely at the lender and not at the SBA. The lender is your point of contact for the process. So you want to work with your lender as best you can. You'll need to find a CDFI who's open. And whatever documents they ask for, make sure you upload them quickly. Next one. So who's open? The open CDFIs are changing daily, and you need to find one as soon as possible if you haven't already applied. Hopefully you'll find a CDFI which had already made the updates for the sole proprietor draw, right? And originally it was line 31, it was modified to be line 7. And so you'll want to find a lender, a CDFI, who's done that change. If you get the application into a CDFI and the SBA loan guarantee number is applied before funding has been expended, you will be funded. So the key gating factor is getting into the process with an application into a CDFI that is open, taking applications, and taking applications from non-banking clients. So if you do have problems with your PPP1 documentation, it's going to be hard to correct in time unless one really starts today. So you want to get started today. As soon as this is over, you haven't applied, apply. Next one. So some frequently asked questions about the program. Should you apply for the forgiveness for the first draw now? And the answer is yes. All the forms are in place. The process is working. There's no reason not to apply for forgiveness for your first draw PPP loan anytime you want. Should you apply for PPP with the same lender that you used? The answer is for the vast majority of borrowers, you can. Whoever you worked with the first time, unless it indeed was a CDFI, you now must find a CDFI that's open. So again, must I apply with the same lender? Again, you can't unless it's a CDFI. They're the only groups open for applications. Can you apply to more than one lender for PPP2? The answer is yes, but in my personal opinion, it would be foolish to do this now. There's just not enough time left in the program to be submitting multiple applications. You want to try and find a lender that's open, get that lender the information they need, work with them to get the application approved and into the SBA before either the 31st of May or funds have been expended. Can you get more than one PPP loan? And the answer is no. There's no going back and redoing your PPP1 or your PPP2 after it's funded. Do you need to get PP1 forgiveness before applying for PPP2? And the answer is no. They have nothing to do with one another. Apply for PPP2 if you haven't done so. You can apply for PPP1 after you get funded for 2. It's not a problem. Next one, Bree. So if you didn't get a PP1 loan, can you get a PPP2 loan? And the answer is no. By definition, you're a PPP1 borrower, which is better for you, because if you didn't get a PPP1 loan and you apply now for the first draw, there's no 25% revenue decline. It's a simpler application and it should go faster for you. Forgiveness for the two programs, 1 and 2, is the same. So there's no change in forgiveness. There's no change in the rules. Should you call the SBA? And the answer is no. There's not enough people at the SBA to possibly take all the calls. But also the process is designed for you to work with and through your lender, because they're the ones who are going to support you in the process. Getting funded is quick. 1 to 3 business days after you sign the documents. I've had several clients who were told that their paperwork was sent to the SBA on a Monday. It came back on Tuesday. They signed the documents Tuesday afternoon. They were funded Wednesday morning. So the process has worked well. So correcting mistakes on applications after they've been submitted. The answer is yes, until the loan is funded and this form 1502 is filed with the SBA. Once that happens, the loan can't be changed. So it's one loan, one PPP2 loan per employer identification number or social security number. And again, once the PPP2 loan is funded and recorded, it can't be changed. So it makes sense. Next slide, please. It makes sense to make sure you're doing this the right way the first time. You know, ask us, ask your local SBDC, talk to your lender. And if you do have any questions or problems, get help. Some CDFIs are still open. So by all means, please apply today. Next one. Forgiveness terms. Remember, the purpose of the payroll protection program was to give employers and self-employed people funds so they could keep folks on payroll and for other eligible expenses. So at least 60% of the funds need to be spent on payroll costs. And that doesn't mean it has to be 60% exactly. 60% is the minimum. It can be up to 100%. So you can spend as much money as you want on legitimate payroll expenses. Whatever you don't spend on payroll is spent on other things, and we'll review in a minute. So employee and compensation levels need to be maintained in the same manner as required for the first draw. For loans of up to $150,000, it's a simple forgiveness form. It's 3508S, and it's a one-page affidavit form, basically. And the 60-40 split, 60% for people, 40% for other things, still applies for both new and second draw PPP loans. So the forgiveness terms are the same. Next one. Thanks. So, you know, again, you're committing to maintaining your average monthly number of full-time employees, you know, equal to or where they were, but basically the goal is for you to try and maintain it as best you can. And then the amount that can be forgiven can be reduced, you know, if you go below the targeted number of FTEs or you drop wages. But when this program started a year ago, everyone understood it was going to change, and the changes have been in effect for now, what, 13, 14 months. And so some things called safe harbor rules were put into place in June of 2020, and they're still in effect. And safe harbor is a nautical term. It's something that allowed ships to seek a safe harbor and get away from a storm rather than be at sea. And these safe harbor rules are designed to help you get the maximum forgiveness, even if events outside of your control prevented you from meeting the original terms of the program. Next one. Thanks. And so the safe harbor rules really designed to help in circumstances beyond your reasonable control. If your business was closed by government edict, you really can't do anything about that. If wages and salaries were reduced for reasons outside of your control, if employees refused to return to work, even though you offered them the same salary and position, these are all protections to help you increase your forgiveness even if you weren't able to meet all of the full-time equivalent goals. Lenders understand this, they're part of the form. The forms and explanations are available online. And so when you do the forgiveness, you can get help with your bank. Most of my clients have received full forgiveness. I actually don't know of anyone who has not received full forgiveness for the process, but get help if you need it. Next one, Bree. So calculating your loan for corporations, right? It's one of several ways. You can take the previous 12 months of payroll costs or calendar year 2019. So if you were open in 2019 for the full year, you would use the full year results. Or if your payroll moved in your favor, you can use the last 12 months. You're allowed to use whichever period will provide you with a higher PPP loan. Seasonal businesses have a separate formula, and there are calculators built into the application form that'll help you through this process. If the applicant wasn't in business from February 15th to June 30th, then you can use the average monthly payroll costs for June 1st, 2020 through February 29, 2020. So the system has been modified over the last 13, 14 months to help more companies be able to get funding through PPP. And calculating your loan amounts and calculating your reductions, et cetera, are all now built into the form. Next one. If you're a sole proprietor, and you're a sole proprietor if you file a Schedule C with your tax return, right? Schedule C is essentially a profit and loss statement for a sole proprietor, independent contractor. Sole proprietors generally are not corporations. And it used to be line 31, which is the net profit from your business was the basis for your PPP loan. That was changed to be line 7, your gross profit. And so you would take line 7, your gross profit, divided by 12, multiplied by 2.5, and that gives you your PPP2 loan. Unless you're in a broadly defined restaurant hospitality business where there's a 3.5 to 1 multiple. But whichever line you use, line 31 or line 7, the maximum PPP loan for a self-employed person is $20,833, unless you're in the broadly defined hospitality industry, where it's $29,167. So it's a good idea, if you haven't done it already, to do a pro forma of your 2020 Schedule C as part of applying. You're going to need it anyway, and I think we have to file taxes in the next week. So you want to know sort of what your gross profit is in order to apply for your PPP loan. It's a relatively simple process. The numbers come straight off your Schedule C. Next one. And for those of you who haven't done it yet, this is what your Schedule C looks like. Gross receipts for your business is in line 1. You have certain items, terms and allowances, et cetera, that get subtracted from it to get your gross income. Line 31 would be all the way down at the bottom of the form. That's your net income. So by going to line 7, more people are able to get larger PPP loans than before. And so it's been a great change for the program. Next one. So you want to find a CDFI who does have the new formula as part of the PPP2 application process. If you remember, the process glitched a couple of months ago. It stopped for a few days. Not everybody had made the formula changes to their application. Most people did that after the program restarted. So you do want to find a CDFI who has the new formula using line 7 instead of line 31 as part of the PPP2 application process, and is obviously taking non-banking clients. And most of them are, because they don't do banking that way. So if you do run into a problem, you can take a look at the PPP2 loan amount both ways using line 31 and line 7. If you can't find anyone who's open for non-banking clients and has upgraded it, it's better to get something than nothing. So I would apply under some set of conditions rather than not apply at all. And obviously contact your local SBDC or the Finance Center for help. We're here to help you. Next one. So some second draw limitations again, it's 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost and healthcare costs, et cetera. If you're not in the hospitality business, it's 3.5 times the average monthly payroll cost if you are in the hospitality business, and that's hotels, casinos, food service, restaurants, caterers, et cetera. And the loan amount remains at a maximum of $2 million. Okay. So allowable use of proceeds, payroll cost, minimum of 60%, but they can be higher. You can pay the interest on mortgage obligations, but not the principal. And these are period costs as opposed to prior obligations. You can pay your rent, utilities. Utilities is broadly defined, light, heat, natural gas. You can pay for personal protective equipment. If your staff needed to wear masks and gowns and plastic shields, those costs can be added in. Any operational expenditures, property damage costs, supplier costs are all allowable use of proceeds. And the definition of payroll was also expanded. Payroll is salary, wages, commissions, other sorts of compensation, as well as tips and equivalent. Vacation, parental, family leave, medical, and sick leave are all included now. If you have to dismiss someone and pay them a separation, their accrued vacation pay, that's an allowable cost. Group health benefits are all allowable, as are retirement benefits, and most state and local payroll taxes are also included in payroll. So payroll is more than just what you pay an employee. It's all of the payroll loading costs that go on above that. Next one. So some additional expenses, if you're buying any software using cloud computing, you needed to add human resources for accounting or other programs, these are all covered expenses under the 40%. If you had any property damage, that's covered. Again, supplier costs, personal protection equipment for employees, and so all of these expenses can go into your forgiveness. But remember, everyone has the ability to use a 24-week use of funds period. And the 24-week use of funds period, which started last June 2020, has been fantastic to allow companies to basically use the 2.5 months of payroll, that the basis for the loan, to spread them out over 24 weeks rather than 10 and get full forgiveness. Next one. So some other major updates. The idle advance will not be reduced from your forgivable PP loan amount. The idle advance was something that happened as part of the idle program in 2020. The maximum advance was $10,000, but everyone who checked the box asking for the emergency advance received $1,000 per employee, up to 10 employees. Covered period is 24 weeks now. Everyone has the option to use the 24 weeks. Everyone should take it. It's an easy way to maximize your forgiveness. Group insurance programs are eligible expenses, and anyone who returned all or part of their first PPP loan early in the process, can reapply for another one, although that's now somewhat over. So, next one. Thanks. So expenses made with the forgiven PPP loan proceeds can be deducted from your taxes. The PPP loan does not count as income, nor does the idle advance, nor do a bunch of other payments, but you can claim those expenses on your income taxes as well as on your PPP loan for forgiveness. Gross income from business will not include any PPP loan amount that is forgiven. And gross business income is not going to include forgiveness, PPP loan forgiven amounts, idle grants, certain loan payment assistance and grants for shuttered venues, as well as others. So these programs are all designed to not impact your taxes, which is great. And since I think May 17th is the date for tax filing, everyone should be doing that as well. Next one. So keep all your documents, keep your payroll runs or whatever ledgers you have for 4 years. You want to keep the documents for 4 years. You remember your forgiveness flows through your lender. You fill out the forgiveness form on your lender's portal. They approve the forgiveness form. They send it on to the SBA. The SBA then counter forgives it, sends it back to the bank. The bank or lender then contacts you that the loan's been forgiven. Next one. A little bit between PPP and EIDL, since these things do get to be confusing. Remember, PPP is forgivable. If anything isn't forgiven, it becomes a 5-year term loan at 1% interest. Use of funds, primarily payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, utility expenses. You apply through SBA approved lenders, which are now just CDFIs, and no collateral is required. The EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, is not forgivable. If you're a for-profit company, there's a 3 3/4% interest rate. If you're a nonprofit company, there's a 2 3/4% interest rate. But the rates are low, they're fixed for the 30-year term of the loan. And EIDL and PPP were designed to be used together. So a lot of the uses for EIDL are those things you're not supposed to use the PPP loan for. So if you're a restaurant and you have to restart by buying a whole bunch of new food inventory, those costs are not eligible under PPP, but they are eligible under EIDL. Working capital, inventory, fixed debt payments, etc. And now with the new changes to the EIDL program, loans over $200,000 are secured only by a UCC filing, and even at $500,000, the new maximum, no personal assets are required. So it's a great program. If you can get the additional EIDL funds, you should. So some things to remember, don't get too lost in or about Triple P. Just remember, it was designed to help millions of companies, sole proprietors and contractors across the country maintain employment through a pandemic. It makes the most sense when you step back and think of it in those ways. Keep your documents for 4 years. Forgiveness for the first program is open and working well. File for forgiveness if you haven't done so already. And your lender is going to be your partner in both the draws as well as forgiveness. Next one. Thanks. Most PPP borrowers, have and will receive significant forgiveness. Again, as I said before, I don't think I have over 200 companies with this, and I do not believe any of them have anything that wasn't forgiven. The 24-week use of funds period versus 10 weeks of funding means you have a lot of time to use the PPP funds against their primary use, which was people. Sole proprietors, contractors, self-employed people should be able to get 100% forgiveness just by allocating the PPP loan to their own income over the 24-week period. The EIDL advance is now a grant. It is not deducted from PPP forgiveness. It does not have to be repaid. If there is anything unforgiven, it's a 5-year term loan at 1%. It's a fantastically low interest rate. The Triple P loans are not personally guaranteed so long as they're used for their intended purposes. And you may need to find a new lender if your sole proprietor borrowing formula is hard to find. But it's better to get an application in under any conditions than to miss out on the program altogether. Next one, please. And my numbers are somewhat old, but remember that Triple P has been a true world-class program. some 10 million. Carrie Ellingwood can give you a better number. But as of the last time I asked, there were over 10 million PPP loans have been made for about $800 billion to help companies through the pandemic. High levels of forgiveness for those who follow the program. So please don't miss out. Apply today, because by the next time we do this COVID program, probably all the funds will have been expended. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sunita. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me cancel this. Sorry, answering questions too. So let's get started on the additional acts. Next, please. Additional programs, the EIDL appeal program, targeted EIDL advance, SBA debt relief, restaurant revitalization fund, the SVOG, and the ERC. Before we move forward, though, I wanted to ask Carrie, and I'm not sure if she's there right now. Carrie, are you available? If not, we'll get back.
So I apologize, Sunita. I don't seem to have a good control over my controls, let's say.
That's okay. That's okay. It happens to the best of us for sure. So I have had quite a few questions in the Q&A asking how people have not received, they want an EIDL increase and they have not received that email yet. What can they do?
So for the EIDL increases, what they can do is submit their email to, I'll put this in the chat, PDC reconsideration at sba.gov. And then you will want to request an additional amount, refer back to your original application number, and they will then send you what additional documents you're going to need to provide, one of which will be your tax return. There is the 4506T program from IRS, where you can use that form to submit it. Wait for SBA to send you a special access to that program from IRS that will get you processed a little more quickly. That program, due to COVID-19, a lot of different people are refinancing, trying to get information out. So those are taking a little bit longer. SBA was able to work with IRS and get this link that we can send you to get that information to us a little more quickly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie. I really appreciate that. It just seemed like this go around, there's a lot of questions in regards to that. So they would just go through the same process as we're telling all of our other borrowers that have been declined. So the PDC recons. Awesome.
Yes, and just keep in mind with this additional expansion of the program, instead of just 6 months, it's now 24 months. There have been a lot of reconsideration requests for additional funding. So the agency is working through millions of those applications. And as you all know, we've had to add contractors and temporary individuals to help us get through these. So it is very challenging right now for small businesses. I understand, and just know that we're working as hard as we can to get back to you on that application. And our phone lines are very busy. So if you can have a little patience with us, if it goes past 3 or 4 weeks, then of course reach out and ask for a status or some kind of information. But typically it's going to take that long for your application to have someone look at it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Next, please, Bree. So the EIDL has opened up again, and you can apply for the EIDL loan today. So you can go straight to sba.gov and apply for your EIDL loan if you have not yet. You would be the EIDL, that application process is pretty quick. So, and it's pretty easy. They have application how-tos on the website. So if you need assistance with that, please reach out to us. Next, please. The lending, the loan increases. So the loan increased from $150,000 to $500,000. And that's what we just talked about. We had a lot of questions in regards to this because it's stating that SBA is going to reach out to you to find out if you would like this increase or not. And I know some people have not received that, but we have found a way that you could circumvent the email and go straight to the PDC recons, which I will go over and show you that on the next slide. Idle payments. So idle payments have, your due date has increased. So if you received your loan in 2020, your first payment date has been extended out to 24 months rather than 12 months. So you have another 12 months to start paying on that. And then if you receive your loan this year, 2021, your payments won't start for 18 months from the date you receive the funds. Interest does accrue though, since from the date that you receive the funds. Next, please. So the idle appeal process is kind of the same process that you're going to use if you want an increase as well. So if you happen to get, if your idle loan did get declined for one reason or another, you have up to 6 months to get reconsidered. That if you go beyond that, it is okay. You just have to provide a letter why you did not come back before 6 months in regards to that. You thought your business was going to get, increase. It didn't increase. You thought you were going to be able to use your PPP funds. You ran out of your PPP funds, and now you're going to need an idle increase, or you need them to reconsider the idle. So this is exactly the reason, you can just put that in a letter and then update that and put that into your email. And you can upload that as well. So if you applied for the idle and were denied, do not reapply, please. You go through this process, even if it's been over 6 months. So you're going to go through the process, send an email to pdcrecons@sba.gov. Any second application, because your second application, if you do apply through there, it's going to get flagged and it's going to slow down the process. The appeal process is taking long, but it is working. We have heard people getting the additional funds. People that, attendees that come to this webinar, they have told us that they have received increases. So there are people receiving the increases. So just know that it's not just something that's just being said and not actually being done. People are receiving this. SBA's team will let you know what documents are needed, and SBDC can also advise you of these documents, but also wait for the SBA to send you that link for the 4506T, so that way it goes directly to the IRS, which is great. That's something new, I guess, in the last couple of weeks. Next, please. The SBA will reach out to those who may qualify for the targeted idle advance via email instructions to determine eligibility and submit documentation. So these are some of the things that you will have to be able to qualify for this. You are in a low-income community, your business is in a low-income community, suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and has 300 or fewer employees. Those who applied for an idle advance but did not receive funds due to the lack of funding will receive a full $10,000 if they meet the same requirements as above. There is no new idle advance. We get that question a lot too. Idle advance has closed out. These are just for people that have applied it previously. So there is no new idle advance. Next, please. The SBA debt relief. All borrowers with qualifying loans approved by the SBA prior to March 27, 2020 will receive an additional 2 months of payments. I know this started in February, so that's probably run out by now, but this is something that was that they had released earlier this year. Underserved borrowers, namely the smallest and hardest hit, will receive an additional 3 months, so a total of 5 months of relief. Community Advantage loans and microloans approved by SBA prior to March 27, 2020 will receive 5 months P&I payments. SBA payments of principal and interest on the first 3 months of newly approved loans will resume for all loans approved through February 1st through September 30th, 2021. All of this is capped out at $9,000 per month, and all of it is subject to availability of funds. At this point in time, there is still funds there. Next, please. Loan enhancement waives borrower and lender SBA fees under the 7A and 504 loans. If you don't know what that is, please reach out to us and we can walk you through that as well. So if you're trying to buy a building or refinance or trying to get a 7A loan, reach out to us and we'll walk you through the process. Some bank fees will still may apply. Loan guarantees have increased from 90% from 75%. So that's great news. It allows the lenders to then lend this money out. They feel a little bit more secure to lend money out during these times. Next, please. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This is a hot button right now. They are accepting applications. So they started accepting applications, I believe, over a week ago. The American Rescue Plan established the RRF to provide funding to help restaurants and other eligible businesses to keep their doors open. So recipients are not required to repay the funding as long as the funds are used for eligible uses no later than March 11th, 2023. So you have a much longer time period to use up these funds. Next, please. Who can apply? Restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, caterers, bars, saloons, lounges, taverns, snack and non-alcoholic beverage bars like coffee shops, ice cream shops, bakeries, all of these, and just a caveat, on-site sales to the public comprise at least 33% of gross receipts. So for all of these, brew pubs, tasting rooms, tap rooms, breweries and or microbreweries, wineries and distilleries, inns, licensed facilities or premises of a beverage alcohol producer where the public may taste, sample, or purchase products. And there's a lot of these that have popped up in the last few years. So next, please. How can you apply? You can apply directly via SBA online application portal and directly through the point of sale systems, Square and Toast. PO Systems, Clover, and NCR Corporation Aloha will have the documents you will need to upload into the SBA portal. I have not heard yet how well Square and Toast are doing. I was away for a little while, so if anybody has any information on that, please share it in the Q&A, or if Carrie or Steve have that, we'll share that a little bit later too. Not required. You do not have to require for sam.gov here. You don't need to redo this. You do for the SVOG, but you do not for this particular fund. If you would like to prepare your application, view the sample application form. There's actually a slide by slide on the website right now, and also in our Google folder on exactly what you're going to see during your application process. Next, please. When to apply? Apply now. So here are the priority periods, but if you have not applied, we've said this with PPP, and we've noticed that there's people that still hadn't applied for PPP. Apply today, apply now. If you have not applied, please apply. Go through the website, contact us, we'll help walk you through it. The money will run out soon. They have already funded over 16,000 applicants already. So if you are still on the fence about this or not sure about this or want to apply, please apply today. Next, please. So the priority groups, a small business concern that is at least 51% owned by one or more individuals who are woman or veteran or socially and economically disadvantaged. So these are the first group that's going through. So there's 16,000 in that group that have already been funded. Applicants must self-certify on the application that they meet these eligibility requirements. Socially disadvantaged individuals are those who have been subject to racial, ethnic, prejudice, or cultural bias because of their identity as a member of a group without regard to their individual qualities. So econ disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same area who are not socially disadvantaged. Next, please. Funding amount, payment calculations. So for, you can use this calculation for all applicants that were in operation on or before January 1st, 2019. You take your 2019 gross receipts, you subtract your 2020 gross receipts, you subtract your PPP loan amounts. That's your forgiven loan amount, that's anything. So anything you've received for PPP loan, you would then minus it out, and that would be your asking fund amount. Next, please. So the second way to calculate, and this is for businesses in operation partially through 2019, average 2019 monthly gross receipts times 12 minus your 2020 gross receipts minus your PPP loan amounts. Next, please. Payment calculation 3. Calculation 3 for applicants that began operations on or between January 1st, 2020 and March 10th, 2021. This is the only fund that I know of, or grant or loan, that allows startups to request funds. And applicants not yet opened can apply for this. So amounts spent on eligible expenses between February 15th, 2020 and March 11th, 2021, minus your 2020 gross receipts minus PPP loan amounts. For those entities who began operations partially through 2019, you may elect at your own discretion to use this calculation or the previous calculation. So it's up to you. I would look at both of them and see which is beneficial to you, either the second or the third calculation. Next, please. The SVOG grant. Next, please. So this is also, you can apply for this today. If you have not gotten your sam.gov, your information from there, if you have not gone through there yet, you have to go through there to be able to move forward with the application process. I believe they ask you for the number, or if you have already applied. So please apply today if you have not, and then go ahead and apply for the SVOG if you are one of the eligible entity types. So eligible live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts operators, museum operators, motion picture operators, and talent representatives who demonstrate a revenue reduction. These are the folks that can apply. These are the businesses that can apply. The processing period will also follows this. 1 to 14 days, grants will be awarded to venues with 90% loss or more. And then it goes to 70% days 2 through 14. And then after that, 28 days, grants will be awarded to venues with less than 70% revenue loss. Initial grant can be up to $10 million with a supplemental at 50% of the first grant. So that means that there's going to be tiered amounts that are going to be given to you. You won't receive the full amount all at once. $2 billion set aside for entities with up to 50 full-time employees. The SVOG entities can receive this grant, but if they do, they are not eligible for a new PPP loan. PPP is running out right now, so hopefully everyone has already applied for their PPP before they applied for their SVOG. Next, please. So also continue, this grant is going to be administered by the SBA office of the ODA. The grant amount in general will be 45% of gross earned revenue if in operation on January 1st, 2019. If the venue was in operation after the 1st of 2019, you calculate the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation during 2019 and multiply that by 6. Applicants must have been in operation on January 29th, 2020. So if you were not in operation in January 29th, 2020, then you would not be able to apply. You can apply if you received an EIDL loan and or a PP loan in 2020 or in 2021. The SVOG can be used for specific expenses such as payroll, rent, utilities, and other costs to be determined. The SBA will publicize the opening of the portal for applications in advance, which has already been opened up. I will delete that in the next go around. Next, please. The ERC. Next, please. The ERC is a refundable payroll tax credit that is offset against certain payroll taxes. Rules for qualification and tax credits and amounts are slightly different for 2020 and 2021. And if I find the flyer, I will put that in the chat so that way you have that information too. It just goes through a little bit more information from the IRS. Which businesses qualify? Employers that operated during calendar year 2020 and experienced either full or partial suspension of the business operation during Q2, 3, 4 of 2020 and or Q1, 2 of 2021 because of government orders limiting commerce, travel, or group meetings due to COVID-19, or 2020 quarterly gross receipts less than 50% of the gross receipts in the calendar quarter in 2019, or 2021 quarterly gross receipts less than 80% of the gross receipts in the same calendar quarter in 2019. Employers not operating in 2019 may use the calendar quarter in 2020 or the immediately preceding calendar quarter to measure the gross receipts decline. Employers may qualify for the ERC even if they receive the PPP first or second draws. Self-employment income Schedule C does not qualify. Now, number 2, that was different a few months ago. So this has changed. So please take note on that. So if you still have in your mind that you cannot receive PPP and the ERC credit, you can now. So please, I know that's something that's different. A lot of times it's hard to get the new information out there, but employers may qualify for the ERC even if they receive the first and second draw PPP loan. And I believe that the flyer that I was referencing to is in our Google folder. I believe I put that in there last night, so it might be in there. Next, please. SBA support. Carrie is already on here with us. Carrie Ellenwood, so much. Thank you so much. The Deputy District Director for the Sacramento District Office. Carrie, do you have any other updates for us? There's so much information, as always, on these Wednesdays. It's jam-packed.
Yes, it is very jam-packed, Sunita. Thank you. I do have some updated information. Actually, just got a copy of a news release, and I'm going to have to read it because I haven't seen it before. But the administrator has announced that as of today, from the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, that they have already accepted 147,000 applications from women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged small business owners. And they are requesting $29 billion in relief from the fund. So that's exciting, good news. Those people are getting access to these funds. So to date, there's been a total of $2.7 billion of relief funds that have been distributed to the priority group that Sunita was discussing. And that's over 21,000 restaurants. So good news on that program. It's working very well for the small business community. So as Sunita said, please do get your application in. If you're a restaurant organization or an organization that sells wine and beverages and food, all those kinds of things, it's going to be an wonderful opportunity for you. One thing I do want to say though is please be very careful in that application. Make sure you get all of your information together ahead of time. So when you go to input your information, do your very best to not make a mistake and review what you're putting in there before you push the button, because right now SBA cannot make those corrections. So you will need to make a call to the 800 number and see how they can work that through for you. So please be very careful. And of course, the SBDC Finance Center is a great resource for you if you need help putting that information together. I also wanted to talk briefly about the supplemental targeted EIDL advance. That's an additional $5,000 that will be offered to individuals that received the EIDL advance. So you will not be able to apply for it directly. You will receive an email asking if you're interested in that extra $5,000. So it would be a total of $15,000 that would be forgivable, for lack of a better word, at this point. So there are some criteria for that to be sent to you. You have to be in the low-income community as defined by the IRS. So we've got the mapping tool on our website. A lot of people have a question, well, I'm in a low-income community based on the census tract data. This is actually what IRS has put together from that data. So you will need to make sure that you are in one of those areas. You also need to be able to prove that you've had more than a 50% loss in your revenues between March 2nd, 2020 and the same period as the previous year. And then you also have to have 10 or fewer employees. So this is a specific target of individuals. And once those individuals are able to respond, then there will be a look taken at those funds if there's any additional funds available in that set aside group. As far as the Paycheck Protection Program, as Steve mentioned, it is closed for the lenders, the credit unions, and the banks. We had over 5,400 financial institutions support this program. It's been very well received by the financial institutions as well as our small businesses. And again, reiterate what Steve said, please make sure you keep track of your expenses, use it a minimum of 60% for your payroll costs, and you will then be able to have that complete forgiveness. The other information is, as of May 10th, the forgiven applications have been over 3 million that have been forgiven. And we still have $206 billion that were forgiven on those loans. So as Steve said, a lot of people are filling out those forms correctly, getting that forgiveness on that Paycheck Protection Program. So far, Steve, your numbers are pretty close to what I have. Over 10 million loans approved for over $782,000. So that's all we've published so far as well on that. And that would be the update for those two things. And looks like you covered pretty much everything on SVOG and RRF besides my new little news release. But if there's anything else I can speak to or answer questions, I'll be happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carrie. Really appreciate that information from you. And like I said, things are changing all the time, even during this webinar. We do have a question.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for everybody out there, for the targeted EIDL advance, not everyone will get an email about the EIDL advance because of where the business address is. If you do get an email about the targeted EIDL advance, it does not mean you're automatically a program. When you get the email, or if you saved it, go back and look. On the email, there's a hot link to a mapping icon. Click on the hot link. It'll take you to a map. At the top of the map in green, there's a green bar that says location. Click on location and a dialog box comes up. It looks small, but it expands. And you type in your business address exactly as it is on your EIDL loan. It's not your home address. It's not where your customers are. It's the same address that's on your EIDL loan. Type in your address, hit return, and a happy face will come up. Your street will be there, and it'll either say yes or no. If it says yes, it means your business is in the targeted area, and it will allow you to go forward in the process. If it says no, then you stop because you're not. So some people get the emails from the SBA because they may be near an economic zone, but not necessarily in it. So if you get an email, go through the mapping process. If you're in the area, you'll be allowed to go forward. If you don't get an email, it doesn't mean that you were missed. It just means that you're not close enough to the targeted area to having received the email in the first place. So, but if you do get an email and you don't go forward, it's not a mistake. You haven't done anything wrong. It just means the business address is not in the targeted area as defined by the law, not really the SBA, but by Congress's intent. And so if you don't get one, not everyone who has an EIDL loan will do that. Everyone who has an EIDL loan should be able to apply for an increase in their EIDL loan, because the increases are across the board. So the EIDL advance is not the same as the EIDL loan, even though they share a name. They're cousins, but from totally different branches of the tree. EIDL advance is one program. EIDL loan is a separate program. Anyway, with that, I will be quiet again.
Thank you for that explanation, Steve. I think it was really warranted because there are a lot of questions in regards to that. So Mel is saying that his client is in a low income community and has less than 5 employees and has not received the email. Do we know, Carrie, yet if everyone's received the email yet?
They should have received the emails as of today.
Okay.
And again, if he's not in the definition of that low income area as used by the IRS, then he would not receive one. He may be in a defined low income area, but if it's not by the way IRS defines it, then he would not be eligible.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the other thing too, please encourage him to check his junk mail or spam. It might have gotten put in there for some reason.
Perfect. Great advice on that. We have another question in regards to ITIN numbers, and I haven't heard this before, Carrie, so we want to ask you. I'm not sure if we'll get if you have an answer, but Marcus is saying we've heard that ITIN business owners that were denied for PPP funding due to SBA only accepting ITINs with middle digits of 90 or 99. Can you please address what this means and if this has changed or been fixed?
So I haven't heard the specific question about the middle numbers 90 or 99. One thing I do know is if you have an ITN number that has expired, and that would expire if you haven't filed taxes using it for 3 years, you will need to go back to irs.gov and find out what you need to do to get that updated. But I have not heard that 90 or 99 number question, but Sunita, I will be happy to look into that for you and get back to you on that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have not heard that question before. We have answered 74 questions so far. It looks like we have another one. If you have any other questions, can you please place them in the Q&A before we leave today so we can try and answer them? So Lisa, is there a way to tell if a lender matches our legitimate SBA approved lenders? So much info coming into junk folder. Hard to tell what's real and what's spam. Please advise. So if it's coming from the SBA, it's going to say sba.gov.
And I think the other point here is there are a lot of people that try to take advantage of small businesses during times like these. So my best advice and encouragement for you is to go to sba.gov and then look under the lender match link. Right now, all the CFIs, so whether it's a CDFI, a CDC, or Lindustry is actually still processing those PPP loans. So if you have a question, I would go ahead and go to our SBA.gov website to select a lender from that rather than responding to something you get in your email. There are a lot of people out there that just try to take advantage, and unfortunately, you have to be on your toes and really watching out for that kind of information that comes in.
Thank you. And I'm going to put in the chat again the email address, or sorry, the website where you can find the lender match. I put that previously too, but put it in there again. No problem, Lisa. Happy to help any way we can. Nita, I just came on, so not sure if you answered this. Nita, we can send you the whole presentation. Also, if you just complete the survey, this presentation is also going to be on the ASKSBDC website. But you received a based on gross net as self-employed. So how do I create my salary amount I can get paid each week? You could just divide that out by 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then that's how much you would have paid yourself, and then you can ask for forgiveness. I know there's a lot of questions also, Carrie, and I'm not sure if this has come up to SBA, that B of A is not accepting forgiveness applications yet.
There are some lenders, and particularly larger lenders, who have platforms that they use to process because they have so many clients. And if a B of A has not completed their update to the, from the PPP application to now the PPP forgiveness, that may well be true if they're telling you they're not accepting it. So I would continue to reach out to your banking professional there at Bank of America and ask them if they have any idea when that platform might be updated. In the meantime, certainly use the paper forms that are available and fill out all the information that you might need to have ready for when they do open that forgiveness portal.
Thank you, Carrie. And in the Google folder, we have all of the applications for forgiveness there. We have the easy, the simplified, and the full document application in the folder. So, and it's also located at sba.gov, but we just try to make it a little bit easier to find everything. Any more questions? The subject of PPP forgiveness, are they only processing the first right now? It hasn't been 8 weeks yet. I don't recall if it's been 8 weeks yet or from the first initial release of PPP. So they may or may not be accepting PPP. But if Yeah.
So that's going to go through your lender first. And if you've exhausted your PPP funds and you've already had whatever period of time you selected from 8 to 24 weeks, then you could theoretically submit that with your lender, and then they would submit it to SBA.
And like we said about the lenders, accepting PPP ones, your lender may not be ready yet to accept your second PPP forgiveness. So it just really is dependent on your lender. I would talk to them in regards to that, and then they should be able to advise you on how to move forward. I know there's lots of questions. I think there's been questions, the most questions that we do get asked is in regards to PPP forgiveness. They have made it much easier now than it was several months ago with the new PPP simplified and easy forms. So if you need assistance with that, you need help navigating that, reach out to us. If you're a client, if you're not a client, please sign up for services. And Bree, if you can put it to the next page. You can also reach out to us via, this is upcoming webinars. Almost forgot all about that. I'm so excited answering questions. So the upcoming webinars, are, of course, is our Wednesday webinar, and that'll be on the 26th, the 9th, and the 23rd. And then we'll have next week the RRF webinar. I don't know if we'll have any after that because I don't know how long the funds are going to be, there for that. But as long as it's needed, we will continue with the RRF. We do go over the RRF though during our COVID Wednesdays. So we'll take a look at that for June. The expansion capital, Tuesday, May 25th. And I believe that is from our one and only Steve Roth is going to put that on as well. We have additional, of course, webinars coming up in June, and we'll let you know about that going forward. If you ever want to know what's going on with our calendar or of events or any of our other SBDC centers, you can go to sbdc.events network calendar. If you want to see some of our older webinars, not necessarily, I believe, the Wednesdays, you can go to learn.norcalsbdc.org. Our Wednesdays, they also call it town halls way back in the day, is on the ASKSBDC.com website. I was just there earlier today and I saw all of our old ones there. So that would be fun to watch too. Next, please. If you have additional questions, we didn't get a chance to answer them, or you thought about it a little bit later, you can go to AskSBDC.com. You can also go to 833-ASK-SBDC, and you can reach us at the Finance Center or any of your other centers there as well. So, go to loans@AskSBDC.com if you have additional questions, if you want to send us an email. If you prefer to be in Spanish, you can go to Espanol@AskSBDC.com as well. So this is some more additional information for you on how you can reach out to us. Again, we're going to have another series on the 19th. We're going to go over RRF. I'm sure in the beginning we'll do some quick updates, but mostly in regards to the RRF next week, next Wednesday. Any more questions today before we head out? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you spending your afternoon with us. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.